I spoke to 2-3 guys, players, and one coach and one sporting director from the same team. And they just said, it's so annoying and so difficult to play against St. Louis. It's just this one game a year or the 2 games a year. You just don't want to play because you need to always jump over your physical border to be able to compete with us. And that's the biggest compliment we can have. Coming here, being intimidated by the crowd is number one. Coming here, being intimidated by the players on the field, the way we play, by the style, is something else. That's why we will always be a good home team. I'm not worried about that for 1 second.
Welcome to the City Voice podcast. I am joined by the one, the only Lutz Pfannenstiel, Sporting Director of St. Louis City SC. Welcome back to the show, Lutz.
What's up, Pete?
I'm excited to do this podcast with you today. We've got a beautiful view. The sun is out. The weather is heating up like the season. Give us a little bit of an overview of how you feel about the opening so far.
Yeah, I would say very solid. Last year, we knew very well we can't top 5 wins in the first 5 games. That's nearly impossible. But being unbeaten after 4 definitely shows us that we're on the right track. We had some games where I thought we had really good performances, like the New York City game at home. I thought was outstanding. Exactly how we want to play against an opponent which is technically unbelievably good. But also so far we didn't have any easy games. It was all very tight games. We had to compete. And in the end of the day, it's just about to keep our way, to keep on playing what we do and be strong mentally, be strong physically, and get results.
LA Galaxy looks like a team that is on the rise. They've recruited really well over the summer. We exited an away game with a 3-3 draw. What did you make of the result? I mean, definitely a game for the neutrals, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got lots of messages directly after the game from overseas as well as of course stateside, and everybody was like, "Well, what an advertisement for football, for the league." It was so exciting. It was a bit too exciting for me, to be honest. I was like throwing things around up there and being kind of really emotional, but also in a positive way. Yeah, you said it right. LA Galaxy, I think the way they recruited offensively is unbelievable. I mean, with Peck, who came on, but especially Pfannenstiel, that's top players. They very difficult to contain. They always will create chances. But then we also showed where we can expose them. And I think we played really well on the way forward as well. Most important, a point on the road, getting a draw in this league is always something you can build on. So when I sometimes hear, they dropped another lead or it's just a draw. No, the MLS is known for being the only or one of the leagues in the world. I think it's the league in the world with the least away victories, because the trouble is not easy. It's a different kind of game. And to get a game on the field like we played it from a mentality point as well, to get a result on the road as well after a good game in Austin, I think that's exactly what we needed. We were the complete outsider listening to the neutrals. They spent close to $25 million. So they definitely invested a little. And conceding that late, it's kind of like this bittersweet feeling. So you somehow have to be super happy and excited. You came twice back from being a goal down. But then when you concede that late and you somehow question yourself, why do we play 8 minutes extra when we already played 5 minutes extra in the first half? So that 13 minutes, was that maybe a little bit too much? Yeah, I would say. But then conceded late from a set piece is always annoying. Let's take the point and build up for the next game.
You've spoken extensively on this podcast about Joachim Nielsen's qualities. Have you seen a centre-back do something like that in a game? The overhead kick was out of this world. Did you know he had it in him?
I know that he can score from set pieces. He did a lot in Bielefeld and for the national team when it comes to corner kicks, free kicks with his head. But an overhead kick, and I actually had to ask 2 times, was it really Joachim? So I didn't expect that one. It was a bit of a slow-mo, to be honest. But it was a beautiful goal. It should normally win the goal of the match day as well. And yeah, I'm really happy for him coming back from that injury, progressing week to week. Also played a good game defensively and then scoring a goal, rewarding himself. Definitely a good story for our Swedish centre-back.
All right, let's get on to the biggest news story to do with you in a long time, Lutz. You signed a new extension with the club. How do you feel?
Good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have signed it.
What convinced you about this project? I mean, you've been here for 3 or so years now. What convinced you to add another year? What's exciting you?
Yeah, I'm now here more than 3.5 years. So, I was the first person in the sporting department. So to see the growth is unbelievable. We always said we I signed a 5.5-year contract first. It's basically a 5-year plan, because the first half a year was for me more to get settled, to watch, to meet people, to figure out during COVID what exactly happens on the football landscape in St. Louis. So that 5-year plan, in my opinion, became a 6-year plan. That is why I was very happy that we can work another year together, where I think we can still lead into the right direction at certain things. And Peter, I told you that also in private conversations many times. People out there, they usually see the fancy part of the job, which is the first team in a sellout crowd, flying to Miami and play Messi. That's great. I also like that, but that's for me 30% of my job. For me, the second team, for me, the academy, but also the community, it plays the same kind of roles. It has the same pillars. It has, for me personally, the same importance. So seeing the kids growing into professional players, seeing the development every day on the training field with the under 15, 16, 17s, seeing the UPSL boys going to the nationals, it's for me very emotional. It's my heart stops pumping, but starts pumping very quick, because that's the kids I found when I came here in that first 6 months. And the first team is always that what shines, the shining star, but there is so much more than just the first team. And in my job as a sporting director, every player, it doesn't matter if it's a 14-year-old or a 32-year-old, have exactly the same importance.
You made a lot of promises to the city when you started. You wanted to lean into the rich football heritage of the city and build out an academy. You wanted to instill very specific principles. You wanted to sign players that felt something for the club, that worked hard. You wanted to create a club where the system is the star from top to bottom, and you wanted to fill that stadium every week and give the fans a connection to the club. That's a lot of things that you've delivered on. Is it possible to say which one gives you the most pride, or just is there something that's happened over the last few years that you feel is extra special?
I sat down with Jason Tyne a few weeks ago, and we spoke about our first conversation when I had like a little presentation and a piece of paper with the things I would like to deliver for the club, for the ownership, for the city. And I didn't really remember exactly all the things, but he did. And he reminded me that everything and I wouldn't call it promised, everything what we planned, we really so far ticked off the list, but there is still a lot of growth. There is still a lot of improvements to be made, And I can't tell you, I'm not a person who is very proud about what was achieved, because achievements are in the past. I'm more like a visionary who looks into the future. So for me now, having another 2 years and 9 months time to put everything in place for a legacy for the future of the club, from the youngest kids on to the professional team, that's what I'm proud about, that the ownership gave me the opportunity to do that.
There aren't many jobs in soccer like the one you took on at St. Louis. Not many people build something from scratch. What was the biggest thing that you learned through the project? Well,
for me, it was, I had opportunities in England, in Italy, in Germany, in Turkey, which were all big names, glamorous past successes. And lots of people ask me, are you completely crazy to go in my age, in that state of my career, to not go into the Premier League, but going to the MLS, into a team which doesn't even exist? And I told them very clearly, for me, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. For me, it's the coolest and the hottest job at the same time in the world of football, because to build something, to put all the positive but also negative experiences I had in my career as a player, as a coach, but then also as a sporting director or as a CEO, to put all that together and then also say, no, we're not doing this way because I made that experience, I saw it doesn't work. So it's not just always doing the right thing, it's also not doing the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of things happening in football clubs where you see how it's done, and that should be known immediately. Don't do it this way. Stay away exactly from that thing. And that was very important because there's 1,000 things you have in your head to really say, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do it simple and straightforward and clear. I'm a guy I'm very German when it comes to that. I just like to plan. Planning is, I like to plan the smaller things. I even like to plan what I have next week for dinner on Friday evening. It's just the way I am. So for me to be able to plan ahead and clearly say, we do it exactly this way for that reason and for that reason, to keep things simple, keep things real. I think that's the most important thing when you build something like that, because changing strategies, once a little wind blows in your face, that destroys everything. So you need to be true in what you believe, and having that initial talk with the ownership, sitting down with Caroline and say, this is how I see it, this is how I believe it will work. But we need to stick together. And even if there is a negative patch, even if there is a losing streak or whatever, let's not fall and change the philosophy. Because if you stick to your belief, if you stick to your principles and you believe in your values, you will succeed in the long term. And that's something where I'm super appreciative to the ownership, because they think just like me, or I think just like them in this case. And that just fits like a glove, and that's perfect.
That's fantastic. So I don't want to hang too much on last season, but I would like to push you for an abiding memory, like the one sporting achievement or that one sporting moment where you're like, this is why I do it.
I think I have two. You know, I mean, the first moment away in Austin, just whether the last a week ago, and going in the stadium, you know, somehow I still saw Klaus lying there like a butterfly man after scoring that third goal. That's a moment, it will always be that legendary moment of the club, because it was the birth. It was the birth of the club, and we saw that we can beat anybody on day one. And that feeling of winning this game after everybody in the country thought we were the worst team in history. You know, guys, you still can eat that one out there, because we proved we are not the worst team in history. I think we became the best expansion team in history, despite everybody underrated us, insulted us, disrespected us. Exactly what I loved about that, because we could prove everybody wrong with a big smile on our face. So that moment in Austin, definitely something unique. Going up to the box after the game, meet Caroline, meet the owners who were literally up there just celebrating it and like just jumping up and down. The feeling in the changing room, like priceless. But then there was this other moment when we played against Cincinnati, right over there, and the tornado came, people are hiding, and I said to the guys in the changing room, well, if we have 3,000-4,000 people turning up, you know, if we ever play this game today, if really a few thousand people come, let's be really respect that they come, because normally in Europe, nobody would show up anymore. And then we played that game. I don't know what time we kicked off, and there was like 17,000, 18,000 people came back to support us on that terrible, scary weather. And we played probably the best game of the season, beating Cincinnati, which showed and proved to be one of the best teams in the country, winning the Supporter Shield. And we beat them 5-1. I mean, that's something which still makes my hair standing up. Yeah,
that was the first time I'd ever heard a tornado warning at a sports venue. So that was a first for me as well. So talking about, you know, you said a lot of the experiences that you put into this club are about borrowing from the good and the bad things that happened in the past. You mentioned that everybody thought we'd be the worst team in MLS history. We were not. This season, it's a different set of expectations. And I wondered if your experience at Hoffenheim is playing into the mindset that you've got going into this season, because Hoffenheim were an unexpected force that got into the Champions League. we were an unexpected force that won the Western Conference, and now there's a target on the back of the side. How have you adapted to these new expectations? And, what are you speaking to Bradley about, and how are you talking to the players? Because they're up there with the favourites this year.
I actually disagree, Pete, because if you go outside St. Louis, and you're still listening to experts, to people, to other clubs, they still think we know good. They still think we were just lucky in the first year. Now again, they see after 4 games that we can do it, getting a little bit more quiet again. But you still definitely have the impression, and I'm pretty sure you have that as well, talking to some of your counterparts in other teams, that they want us to fail. They want us to fail because we did lots of things very different, which makes me still put a big, big smile on my face. The expectations at home, however, you're perfectly right. They grew, because if you're talking to the fan on the street, or when I go to Home Depot or Schnucks or whatever, everybody thinks we're going to win the league just like that. But that's also not reality. So we need to be clear, what is reality, what is our goals. That is why I like to talk in my 5-year plan, Obviously, last year winning the Western Conference and doing that well, our goal was to be competitive. Well, we were super competitive. I said 2 years ago, we want to be in year 2. We want to somehow manage to get into the reach of the playoffs, build up continuously. Well, if I say that now out loud, people think I'm crazy. So everybody expects and want us to make the playoffs. And that's our goal, to make the playoffs and still build up gradually. But the big goal is, you only can become a title-winning team if you create a consistency of being a good, solid team over a period of 3, 4, 5 seasons. And if you manage every year to make the playoffs, then you create that stability that people in Philly and people in Cincinnati and people in Miami and people in San Jose, they say, yeah, we play against St. Louis, they make the playoffs anyway. Once we reach that attitude that others have towards us, then we established ourselves in the league the way I want it. So the expectations here, I always like to pull them a little bit down to reality. We play our game, we fight, we grind, we will win some games, but we also will lose some games, we will draw some games. Important is that we believe in ourselves and that we will make the playoffs again this year. And we don't have to win the Western Conference to have a successful year. We also are very well aware that we did not well last year in the playoffs. But it must be a goal to make the next step if we make the playoffs. So it's just very important to trim down expectations to reality. And we spent $1 million on transfer fees this year, and LA Galaxy spent $25 million. They didn't beat us.
Yeah. Fan expectations and the commentary of pundits as, rival fans' expectations, I should say, has not always been accurate. You speak to a lot of sporting leaders, the experts, the people that are looking at the data. What are rival sporting leaders saying about St. Louis? Like, what's the perception like behind the scenes?
Extremely good. So, obviously, I have some really good contacts within the sporting directors scene and others. We all know each other. And yeah, some of them also who knew me, they were pretty convinced that we will have a decent start last year as well. Others who just basically looked at the pure names and ideas, they thought, well, they're set up to fail. I remember we were called a USL team trying to compete in the MLS, a team who doesn't want to spend any money and will pay the price for it. The worst team in history, which maybe will win 3 or 4 games. And that's something where people just went out there and said it, but nobody ever really said anything back to them. And we don't have to. We just show with our action. So, that's something which have really also changed from the sporting directors. They know that we are a difficult team to play against. And I just give you an example. One of our last away games, I spoke to 2-3 guys, players, and one coach and one sporting director from the same team. And they just said, it's so annoying and so difficult to play against St. Louis. It's just this 1 game a year or the 2 games a year. You just don't want to play because you need to always jump over your physical border to be able to compete with us. And that's the biggest compliment we can have. Coming here, being intimidated by the crowd is number one. Coming here, being intimidated by the players on the field, the way we play, by the style, is something else. That's why we will always be a good home team. I'm not worried about that for 1 second. But also going away and make life a misery for the opponent. And you see it sometimes how gassed opponent players are in the last few minutes, having cramps, while my boys are still running like rabbits out there. That's pure pleasure for me, because that's the playing style. The never give up attitude, blue collar, hardworking, down to earth. Let's come, bring it on. We will fight till the last moment. And that's something where we by now we are really well respected for that.
Do the players enjoy making life difficult for the opposition? Is that something they get a bit of a kick out of?
Of course, when you are already basically killed by everybody in the country before you kick the first ball, players do react to that. I mean, last year it was all about the pride, but even now, knowing that our team is our star, knowing that we need to have not just 11, but we have 16 people on the field nearly every game, because Bradley makes always, or 99%, his 5 changes, because this guy is working so hard on the field. You cannot do that for 90 minutes. The players bought in. That's why we only sign players from the start to buying into the system. And I repeat that many times. Maybe there is some better players out there who would be, number one, more expensive. But again, I don't care about the price. We need players who 100% identify themselves with our playing style, that they have to give 90 minutes. And when you're a striker, you need to still work very hard defensively. And when you're a midfielder or number 10, you still need to work really hard against the ball. And that is where everybody's on the same page. And that is what St. Louis City stands for. That's what we are.
You mentioned that having an intimidating stadium is part of the mix. When we went to Austin last year, I remember listening to the Austin support section thinking, wow, like it's going to be difficult to get to that level. Like personally, I think our supporters surpassed that this season. How important is their support, their noise, their energy every single game? Does that give the players and the coaching staff a lift?
I mean, as you said, Austin, they're pretty loud as well. So difficult to beat. But I mean, even when we played Charlotte last year, I thought Austin was great. That's even greater. And, it just also grows. I mean, is it a motivation? It's already a motivation when the players driving in, because before the players arrive, you already see the whole city is city red. People are already up and down since lunchtime, running around, supporting the team. It's an amazing feeling. It has so much Bundesliga and kind of Premier League feeling in our stadium. And it's not just that it intimidates the opponent, it also pushes our guys on the field. I even would say it's like an honor to be there and share our experiences with the fans there, because they are, I feel there is unconditional support in the stadium. I mean, there is always a few people out there who like to read and type, and some keyboard warriors who try to make your life miserable as a club. But that kind of feeling we be given in the stadium from our supporters is amazing. Or when we met in the Armory not that long ago for our rally, pep rally, or was it? Yeah, it's called pep rally. I mean, the amount of people showed up, but also the smile on the face, the shining eyes. That's something special. So the last thing I think we ever will have a problem with will that people support us. And that's a great way to know if things are not going well. You have the 12th man on the stands who still pushes you and still will support you. And that's also a legacy which we want for the club. Not just players and playing style, but also the fan support. I have the feeling it will be, over many, many years to come, the best and most legendary support in the country.
That's fantastic. And to remind people that don't know, we did a pre-season pep rally locally. 4,000 people showed up. The noise on that stage was like a rock concert. It was absolutely unbelievable. Only in St. Louis, I think you would get something that good. So let's talk about this season. First season, nobody knew what was going to happen. Maybe you did. Second season, is it easier? Is it harder? Like, what's it like preparing for a second season?
You know, usually you say in Europe, you would say the second season for a promoted team is harder, but we are not a promoted team. We are a team which was built. It's definitely not easier because expectations are going through the roof. We mentioned it already. So sometimes getting a draw, people are reacting more like in a disappointed way, but that's also, I think, a way to sometimes look at it on a more realistic way, which I did before. I think it's, in the end of the day, it's the same thing. We made little changes. We tried to improve the squad in certain areas. That's my job. That's the life of a football club. People coming, people going. You know, that's it's not romantic. Sometimes it's sad, but that's part of the game. So we lost players which played a massive role for us last year here. But we also added a player where we thought they will improve us in certain areas. And that's why I'm not worried about year 2. I'm also not worried about year 3 because the core players, the spine I would call it, the players I signed first, you know, we signed them on longer term contracts. So it's not like that I can't see that Roman Bürki will not be here next year. You know, he has a contract, and there's lots of other guys. It's not just Roman Bürki, and they're having contracts. They are happy here, and that is how we want to build year 2, year 3, year 4. And so for me, it doesn't matter if it's year 1 or year 2. We just have to do what we do.
You've had a lot of success with the transfer strategy of picking up players kind of in the primes of their careers from Europe and bringing them over. It seems that a lot of MLS clubs are trying to follow that path. You know, Klaus, 24, 25 years old, Edu, Roman Bürki, who's prime for a goalkeeper. Do you see that as a trend that's going to continue? You know, we've had this kind of, you know, Messi and Suarez over at Miami, but it seems like a lot of very good players are now moving over to the league over the last year.
Yeah, it made me smile a bit this year when I looked at the whole list of transfers because the last years there was mostly players from South America coming to the MLS, and you know, we went a very European way. I mean, we still have players from Africa and South America, but our main hunting ground definitely was Europe, was mostly the Bundesliga. And seeing now how many European players joined the MLS this year, I was gobsmacked, to be honest, because you know, we signed a few Scandinavian players, but how many Scandinavian players followed into teams which traditionally mostly sign South American players? So I was really surprised. So I think that our strategy last year, definitely some people looked at it and said, you know, let's also look into other markets. But overall, yeah, I mean, you know, Miami, different kettle of fish. I mean, they signing, I would call it Messi and friends, you know, and I mean, we know the quality of Suarez, we saw it. We know the quality of Busquets. We know the quality also of Jordi Alba. I mean, that's players who played at world-class level in Europe for many, many years. That's one strategy, to have that kind of like the Backstreet Boys come together again, you know, and have a few gigs now in Miami, doing well. They electrify the crowds. They pulling the crowds. They selling shirts. They're playing some great football. So, well done.
But most MLS clubs aren't looking at that and following, right? They're going for
and that's the main thing.
It's a positive, right?
Definitely. I mean, we decided to go for younger guys, and mid-20, you know, not go for too many players around the 30s. And lots of other teams do that. And I think that's actually have a massive impact on the growth of the league before the World Cup 2026, to get players which still are not reached the end of their career, of the highlight. They're still on the way, on the ladder to climb to that higher step. And then they still can go back in Europe or they stay in the MLS, because I believe it must be a clear goal for the MLS to say, well, we know right now there's the 5 European top leagues. There is England, there is Germany, there is Spain, Italy and France. But how far is the MLS really from the weaker ones of that 5? I don't think they're that far. And adding quality players from Europe, I think coming towards 26, the MLS will be able to challenge that. And it must be the goal to be one of the top leagues in the world. You won't get that easy past England, Germany, Spain, of course. We all know that. But the goal and the dream and the wish and the work to put in to reach that level, that's the most important thing, to be ambitious and not just say, let's sign the guys from the past. We sign the guys for the future.
Yeah, I mean, and the development of the Premier League was very similar. Like growing up in the UK, you start with the sort of Ravanellis, the
Karambeurs, the Mendietas.
Yeah, the Zolas at the end of their career, and then they started moving more towards the 25, 26-year-olds, and now it is where it is. So it's interesting watching that play out, and it's also fantastic to see high-quality players come into the league across the clubs. I know you don't want to talk too much about opposition clubs, but are there any clubs that have really impressed you with their recruitment over the summer? You know, you've mentioned LA Galaxy. We can all see what they're doing there is very exciting. Are there any other clubs that you're sort of keeping a bit of an eye out for?
I mean, recruitment is like, it's you know, signing 1 or 2 top guys is that's also good recruitment. But in the end of the day, it needs to make a team. It needs to fit together. And if you have 9 basic players running around the field and you have 2 top guys, does that make you successful? Well, I would bet you it doesn't. So I think the mix really makes it. I always liked the recruitment of Philadelphia Union. They have a very similar idea like we do. I also think that Colorado did quite a good job. You know, they brought guys, American boys back from Europe, like Zach Steff from Man City, which I also had in Düsseldorf on loan from Man City, which is a top goalkeeper. And they brought Djordjevic back from Holland. So it was some good moves, some good off-season moves. Overall, I think it's still a bit too early to say what recruitment really worked and didn't work. I don't really like to look too much at other clubs. I focus on us. You know, that's for me, it's the most important. If you always look over your shoulder, what did they do? Do we need to follow? Or they signed a guy for 10 million. Do we need to follow? No, we need to look at what we have and where we have to get better and where we can improve. Yeah. And that is important to improve in the right areas, not just to say, and that's like one of my things which always kind of makes me shake my head, but also smile about, is when I hear, why don't they get another DP? Tell me, what is a DP? Just explain to me what a DP is. Is a DP a guy who costs 10 million? So what exactly is the reason to put a price on a player's head and believe that because he's expensive or older, or because he played somewhere else before at the top level but not anymore, why should he come here and just roll the league and smoke it? It won't work. So having an idea about you, there's nothing wrong with signing DPs, but it needs to fit in what you do. Otherwise, you waste an international slot, you waste some money, and most importantly, you destroy the chemistry in the changing room. But people not always see that. They think a DP comes, wins, puts the crown on his head, and walks away. But that's wishful thinking. And looking at the league last year and the last 2 years, tell me if I'm wrong or right.
You're right. I agree. So let's focus on City. You worked really hard with people like Dale Shilley to build out, and John Hackworth to build out an academy which has been delivering. Is it easier to attract the best young talent this season than it was last season? Like, are people looking at the success, or is it just the same?
You know, in our strategy, it doesn't really change that much because we believe in local talent, and we are the only MLS team here 4.5 hours away. I mean, it more is interesting to see that other teams, which are not too far away, they're still trying to recruit from here because they know St. Louis have a passion in the past about soccer, and they have a big talent pool. So, I'm not too worried about, because we have a lot of talented boys here, a lot of players who have the quality to become professional footballers, and it's our job to collect them, to give them opportunities, to give them chances. Again, it has a bit to do also with the playing style, to be honest, because we do play from our youngest age group to the pro team. We play the same football, and that the plan behind is that to make that transition very easy. Because if I play a completely different football in the 16s, and then I bring him up into the 17s or MLS Next Pro, and that's suddenly the complete different style, the player will never make it. So it's our responsibility to give them the best platform to develop, but also already a right way of playing, how we want to do it. And I think it's great to have a great first season under the belt, and it makes the club even more shiny. But I don't think that parents sent their kids to us because we won the Western Conference last year. I think they sent them here because they know we want to build a good team character. We want to educate good players. We want to find the best talents. And most important, give local youngsters opportunities to become professional footballers. Plus, also work on the personality. Like, we want to create good human beings in the locker room. And I think that's for parents just as attractive than just building and finding the best players. Character and talent needs to be yin-yang. Otherwise, you have a top player with a bad character. No point. Or a top character who can't run straight. Also, no point. You need to find the right way to do that.
That sounds like a harder way of scouting, but do you put that sort of character talent balance? Do you put a lot of the success down to your ability of your coaching staff and your scouts to be able to understand all of those elements? How do you find out about character?
Well, I mean, look, that's kids. So the kids are just about to create or build their character, but we can be very helpful with that. So you can't say that 15-year-old or 14-year-old is a bad character, but he can create a character which not works in a team sport. That is why I believe coming in early, working with our guys from a sports psychologist up to a good medical team to really good coaches, that creates character and personality. So we want to build nice, good personalities, and that's something where we can be a support tool. That's what I mean by character building.
UPSL had a really good season. I know that is, one of the teams that excited you. It came into the mix quite late last year. How much does it mean to you to see that team doing well? And tell people that don't understand a little bit about that particular group of players and the sort of higher purpose for that part of the club.
Yeah, I mean, number one, that's Generation 1. That's the Miggy Perez age groups, which I still was looking myself at every high school in the city and in the region to find the right players. For us, it was important to have a complete pathway. So once a player finishes the U17, it's normally make or break. You becoming a professional footballer and you go into City 2, or if you're a top talent, maybe the City 1. And if you don't make it, you join another team for a year and then you go to university. And for me, it was very important. And that's also a really, really detailed talk about that with the Taylor family. And we said, no. We don't want to send these kids away. We want to create another team, like a pre-college program, where we keep them on a complete pathway. And they still wear the City crest. And they still are our kids, our boys. Once they finish this UPSL, if it's a good development, he still can join City 2. And if not, we make sure we have a good college placement system here and we get them the best opportunities to go to a top school in the United States. The success we had with that group, I put in my world at the same level as the first year of the first team.
Did we get any? Did anybody find colleges?
I mean, not just, we had like 25 players who committed to top colleges.
That's fantastic.
And some kids who 3 years ago, when we found them, had not even the smallest idea to actually well, I could get picked up by a top school on the East Coast, or going to SLU or going to Indiana. Our guys are hot property. They are wanted, and that's something which makes me really happy. I think it makes the ownership really proud, because looking after these kids and keeping them in the system, that's something which is high priority. And then, of course, having, like myself now, this emotional connection to all these kids who, as I said, they're generation one. When we played in Chicago in 2021, first ever MLS Next Academy game, and we won there 4-3, and we scored in the last minute, and it was like one of the biggest parties you can imagine on that field. Every single player, I would say 10 out of 11, played in UPSL, or all of them played in UPSL for a while before they go to university. That's what it's all about, Pete.
Talking of Miggy Perez, he went out on loan. Like you've mentioned before, that going on loan can teach you a lot about yourself. Just give people a bit of an overview. We saw a lot of him in the first team this year. He's out on loan at the start. Like, is there anything to be worried about? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Like, give us the rundown.
It's a good thing. Being on loan gives opportunity. It's still our player. He still is in our system. He still is in our thoughts. He still is basically here. He still has contract, and being for let's take Miggy in Birmingham, playing at a good USL team, having minutes every week, but also being away from home for a while to grow personality, to learn about, as you said, about yourself, to be more self-sufficient, to be able to get something to eat by yourself, or to live by yourself. That's an important part in a young player's mindset. I remember when I moved away for the first time, it was very comfortable being at home with my mom and dad. I don't have to think much. Now suddenly things are changing. That really makes you grow up very quick. So loaning a player out is not a punishment. Loaning a player out is not like demoting him. Loaning a player out is getting him onto the next level to be ready for bigger things once he comes back. And we also have Isak Jensen out on loan in Viborg in Denmark. The guy is 20 years old. He just got called up a few days ago for the Danish under-21 national team. He was 6 times in the team of the week in Denmark. He scores goals. He does well. That's a kid who came here as an 18-year-old, completely fresh from Denmark, who didn't know much about the world yet. He came here. He grew up. He went back to Denmark on loan, and he's rolling the league there right now. That's, for us, a big thing.
Keeping on the subject of exits, you said earlier in the podcast, it's just part of the process. Did you go into the break kind of knowing who was going to leave, or is it more like an opportunistic thing? And how would you assess, transfers out?
Well, I knew in the summer, basically, who will leave and who will not leave, because there was contracts running out, which we decided not to sign new contracts or make new offers. There was options not pulled or not taken, and there was players where we did pull the option, but we knew that there will be opportunities to trade them. Is there a market there for them? So there was always that opportunity. So we knew definitely what we want to look for, or what we're going to look for to get in, but we also knew exactly what we will get out. And then obviously that we sold Nico Ciauchini to Italy, and that was something which caught some people by surprise, but it was for me pretty clear that if the way things worked, and that he gets an opportunity and a good offer comes from Italy, where yes, you can hear on the name, he's half Italian. It was for him a dream to go back to Europe. He performed during the season, and then again, we not just letting Nico go for the sake of letting Nico go, or to make Nico happy that he goes back to play in Europe. It was then also the financial interest coming. So everything needs to be a perfect fit. It needed to be a good fit for the player, it needed to be a good fit for us, it needed to be financially a deal which satisfies us. And then even I had such a good relationship to Nico that I told him, Nico, if I have the feeling that it's the wrong move for you, even though you want it, I won't let it go, because I need to have the feeling that you're doing the right thing for you right now. And knowing the people in Como and see how the things went out, and also talking to Cesc Fabregas and to Thierry Henry about it, who are coach and owner, part owner in this club. It was an opportunity. Nico, he wanted to do it. I felt that the club really wanted him. And for us, the deal was also the right thing to do. So that is why Nico left.
Signing new players, obviously a key part of your job. What were you looking to do? Like big picture, what was the plan going into the window? What was the objectives for you?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the positions where I thought we need to have an upgrade, or we just have a player there which we don't renew the contract or make an offer. So it was for us very clear where we wanted to act. Then again, if you're looking at the guys we brought in, Niklas Dürr, 22, Totland, 24, then also Chris Durkin just turned 24, so he was 23 when we signed him. And Christian Olivares, a very young goalkeeper. So we wanted again to stay true to ourselves, what we wanted. And we signed young players who were raising and getting better and have a high ceiling. That's what we wanted. It was obviously, people reading the papers, we were out there to also look for another striker to replace Nico, but then also having Klaus and Sam.
It's luxury position.
It's a luxury position. So adding another one there, having a third one competing sometimes for one or two places, and having lots of players who play also like as a kind of second striker or just behind a striker. It was something we didn't do yet.
So let's talk about individuals. Thomas Totland, signed him from Hacken. He's got dual citizenship. What were you looking at in his data? What were you looking at in his performances that excited you? Because you weren't the only MLS club in for him. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's correct. I mean, I literally hunted the kid for 2 years down the line. I mean, I don't know how many calls I had with Hacken, the sporting director there. I think when he saw my name coming on the phone, I think he already turned green in his face because he couldn't hear me anymore. So Thomas obviously having an American mom is a massive advantage because he doesn't have a foreign slot. So he's considered to be a local. But the playing style, the energy, the ability, the engine he has, I was not surprised that a big number of MLS teams also tried to chase him down. Some of the big names, ones who signed lots of players, came in and tried to convince him to play with some world-class players on their books very late. And I have to say, the agent, the parents, and the player, they showed a lot of great character to say, listen, St. Louis always wanted us from day one. They always painted a very nice career plan for Thomas. And now we're coming in with a bigger offer. No, we stick with that, what we agree with St. Louis, and we will honor that. That alone made me immediately know that was a very good decision for us, because again, it's a lot about the character and the heart, and following him that many games. I don't know how many Tottenham games I watched before he came. I mean, I think I probably watched 20 games of Hacken, and I watched him already before when he was still in Tromsø in Norway. I know I want this player, and I think so far I keep it like this. What I say now, I won't say much more. So far, what everybody who watched our games so far seen in him, how he performed, is what I saw in him.
He's come from quite a generation of Norwegian players as well. Martin Ødegaard, Haaland, doing great things. Do you expect him to continue to impress and develop his game? Do you think he could be the best right back in MLS? Do you have hopes that high for him? Is that too much?
I mean, I don't want to put any pressure here on Thomas to be the best here, the best there. If Thomas does what he does best, and this is going out there and plays hard out and be a great team member, I think he will have an unbelievable career over here, and I enjoy watching him.
Chris Durkin, he's played a lot of games for someone who's just turned 24. Also played with Klaus in Belgium for a little bit, so there's the sort of connection there. What do you like about his game? What excited you?
You know, last year when he was in DC, I mean, he played every position apart from goalkeeper and center forward. So he was literally, they used him all over the place. Every time there was an injury somewhere, yeah, Chris, can you? Yeah, you can. So I remember Chris very well from St. Troiden in Belgium because, you know, Klaus, I was still in Hoffenheim by then, and when Klaus was put out on loan a few times. So I watched Klaus play a lot in St. Troiden, the few months he was there, and I saw Chris Durkin, who I knew before that he was in DC before. I wanted another six. I wanted a very physical six, a guy who runs till he drops, and the amount of mileage he puts in every game. You know, the passion of winning every single duel, winning every single header. It's an amazing thing to see. So his character, his philosophy, his bite.
Very St. Louis.
It's just St. Louis pure. I mean, if I wouldn't know and I would check his place of birth or maybe a little tattoo on his arm, it would be St. Louis for sure.
Nicholas Deur had a good cameo against LA Galaxy. Another fullback. What's special about his game? You know,
Nicholas came a little bit later. It was a long, complicated negotiation with Midtjylland in Denmark, but that's one of the most talented left backs in the Danish league or in Scandinavia. Played also for the under 21 national team in Denmark. I think we saw on Saturday against Galaxy what he can do for the team. So I think now he's in the right physical shape as well. They had a longer break before Christmas. Then obviously he didn't train anymore with Midtjylland when he was waiting for the papers and everything. So now he's 100% ready to rumble. And I compare Niklas and Thomas Totland, both of them, similar positions or same positions, just different side. And I also see very different playing style and very, very similar attributes. So that's for us a player which is still very young, a long way to grow, who will make us better.
And he's a different player to Anthony, who's also had a big impact on the side. Do you like having players in the same positions that contrast each other?
Yeah, I mean, look at the right side, Thomas. You know, and then we have Jake Nowinski, which is like a very strong defensive player, a player who can also play centre back, a player where we know exactly if he has to defend and he has to mark and he has to work on a defensive side, he's very reliable. So having that kind of a bit different kind of approach and playing style, it's very important that you have always various options to decide who you start or how you change.
And Jose Kojima, I mean, what a debut from him. And also wanted to talk about Brendan McSorley as well, because, you know, you think about City 2 at the same time. Can those players make starts for the first team this season more?
Yeah. I mean, Jose with H, Kojima, you know, I mean, he somehow became a legend. In his first game, because if you just walk in there and score a game winner in a Champions League game, the first ever, you know, I mean that's pretty impressive. But not just that, also the way he trains, the way he plays. Honestly, Pete, he doesn't look to me necessarily like a college player. Sometimes you see a guy who comes from college, he looks so mature for his age. He knows exactly how we play. He's a bit of a football geek, I would say.
Yeah, see his tactical tweets.
Yeah, so he just likes a different approach of everything. Very disciplined, and definitely a player which will get opportunities. A player which will play games, and yeah, I mean he also will play some City 2 games, of course. But he just came in, so that's already something really which worked out well for us. I mean, I personally loved the draft. I liked the draft last year as well because Johnny Klein, for me, one of the top players in the next pro,
scored at the weekend.
Scored again, local kid. I mean, that's exactly what we want. Now with Brendan McSorley and Kojima, guys who integrated themselves very well in the first team at the training camps. So definitely 2 players which you should look out for.
Does City 2 still feature as an important part of your strategy? Are the fans that are showing up to see the team, are they potentially looking at a future star coming out of that team?
Very much. I mean, I'm a big believer in MLS Next Pro. You know, I can sleep more happy knowing that we're having that development squad playing in the development league and not in USL. So I'm a strong believer in that idea. Last game, being over there, you know, I have to really make first a big compliment to all my first team coaches and first team players coming back at 6 o'clock and being in bed at 7 a.m. from Los Angeles and then coming there and support the youngsters the same evening. It's nothing what I've seen in other clubs. Lots of first team players can care less about the second team. Very different mentality here. That's one group. They respect each other. They help each other. They support each other. And seeing that was great. So yeah, for me, a very important part of the club. You know, this is where first team players can get minutes when they don't feature that much in the first team. That's academy players earning their first kind of honors as a pro in a pro system as a youngster. And then, of course, players who brought in from draft picks, but also from other clubs who we believe have a realistic opportunity to become an MLS player. So 10 out of 10 for development for this league. And the support also we get there. You know, playing in this beautiful stadium is always an event, I think, for all the youngsters. I mean, it's great. But also the people and also the lots of kids who coming out there, it's great. But as I said, for me, MLS Next Pro development is a big part of the club and of the culture.
And I guess it's important for any fans listening or watching this podcast that City 2 is geared around the next generation of fans as well. And tickets are very fairly priced and it's a fun day down there. I know you don't like to talk about individuals, so maybe you can't give me names, but are there players that you've got your eye on in that City 2 team that could potentially make the jump at some point this season?
Yeah, we have our eye on players in City 2. We also have our eye on players in the U17s, which I believe soon can make the jump into City 2 or maybe even into the first team. But as you know me, I don't like to talk about individuals.
You don't. I like to talk about individuals. Olivares took the 3rd spot in the keeper roster. You know, he's come up from City 2. He's impressed people like Roman Berkey. You being an ex-goalkeeper yourselves, do you pay extra attention to the keepers at the club? Is that kind of one of your things? And tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, of course. I look at keepers a bit in a different way than many others. You know, again, you know the backside of the story here. I remember a bit more than a year ago, I read in some very important football news platform the worst transfer this season in MLS, Roman Berkey. I still would like to actually meet that person for a coffee, ask him if he maybe got his sanity back by now, because in my opinion, definitely the best goalkeeper transfer in the history of MLS. And I don't even discuss or argue about that because we all know how important Roman Berkey is for the team, but we see how good he is of a goalkeeper. He still could play in the Bundesliga, he still could play in the Premier League. You know, that's something I'm just smile about. And having now a lighthouse like Berkey, which influences, I think, every young goalkeeper in the region here, but also lots of young MLS next goalkeepers all over the country. I think for a guy like Olivares, I mean, that's the best school of goalkeeping you can have. You work every day with international top keeper like Roman Berkey. You can pick up so much on a technical, but also tactical part, also mentality-wise. You know, as a goalkeeper, it's not just about saving balls. It's about keep composure and make the big saves when you don't have a lot to do. Remember against New York, 1 shot on target, but it was a massive one before halftime. He saved us again, and that made us win that game. So for Christian, it's a great setup. We had with Michael Creek, a very good third goalkeeper who is now in Tulsa, plays USL. I think had a great start into there as well. But we wanted to go a bit younger there. Having a guy in City 2 impressed us. Just is the right, I would call it, goalkeeper pyramid. Having Roman on top, having Ben Lund and Olivares there as well, but then having a young and upcoming goalkeeper like Nick Bishop from the academy who played now for City 2. Teenager, great.
Fantastic. Another success story to talk about, Sam Adeniran has been phenomenal so far this season. He got an assist at the weekend. How impressed have you been with his development and the fear that he strikes into defenders when he's on a run?
Yeah, I mean, Sam's story is obviously special. Coming here and doing preseason and doing well, and then we decided to loan him out to San Antonio for various reasons. And yeah, he grew so much confidence there. And with Klaus being out injured, and I remember exactly the game when we played against Salt Lake last year. At home, we lost. And I walked up the tunnel to the car. And I somehow thought, let's bring Sam back. It just was the gut feeling I had. And 5 days later, away in San Jose, brace Sam Adeniran, and since then he's one of the most dangerous striker in the MLS. And we got him from Seattle or from Tacoma. Played in Next Pro. When I saw him the first time, I was like, damn, he's difficult to stop. Then he went on loan to San Antonio the first time when he was still in Tacoma. And the San Antonio coach is my former roommate, Alan Marcina, from the Vancouver Whitecaps at my playing days. I said, hey, tell me about the kid. And everything I heard from Sam was what we were looking for. Now, his power, his speed, and his strengths, as you said, it's frightening. I think it's a nightmare to play against him.
It's also, he's got beautiful touches as well.
Yeah. I mean, he has everything, and he also rewarded himself now with a great start into the season. So Sam, definitely a big success story, but also a little bit a story about the St. Louis DNA and a bit the way I like to do transfers, because Sam in Tacoma or in Seattle, if they would have seen in that what I seen in him, they wouldn't have let him go. And I think Azil Jackson is just the same situation, playing in the second team in Minnesota, where there was not much hope for him to become a first team player there, coming over here, and he played a game for the US national team by now, So that's the stories, what we're looking for. Give that underrated player an opportunity, and he grabs it, and he enjoys it, and he grows, and he becomes a top player. Is that why you
want to preserve this way of doing business? Because I think the fans have a tighter bond to players when they know what they've gone through to get there. Fans love Klaus. They know what he went through. Fans love the Sam Adeniran story. Like, fans gravitate towards these stories, and it's always exciting going to that stadium and being like, who's going to break out next? Who has Lutz discovered here that can
it's a bit that underdog feeling, we like that. I think that's what makes us what we are. And I mean, Sam, I couldn't really praise him anymore. Also, the attitude, the way he came back, the way he fought himself in the team, very professional. Changed a lot of his ways on the trainings field. Just really took on that what we want to do. Really bought into the playing style idea. But it's up to the player speed. They need to. Bradley and the coaching staff, they offer the sessions, and the players have to go through the sessions. But the players themselves, they really have to want it. And for him working hard, making the next step, doing that extra bit of piece of work on the trainings field, he did it for himself and by himself. He took the opportunity. And I think that's in professional football what the dreams are made of. But you have to grab the opportunities once you've been given.
Do you think matching the coach to the group of players is also important? Like, Bradley's got an underdog mentality as well. Like, you always feel like he's looking to, prove himself every single week. Is that like a balancing act of making sure everybody at every single level kind of is of the same philosophy? How difficult is that?
Well, it's like an engine in a car. All the parts need to fit together. I mean, if you have a Porsche engine, but an oil pump from a Fiat, the thing will blow up, right?
Yes.
So everything needs to really gel together. And Bradley played exactly that kind of football as a player under Rangnick. So he knew what it means to fight and to press and to counter press and to be like, he was like a very tough player to play against. So that was his mentality. And he just grew that into his coaching as well. So it was for us the fit we wanted. And he likes to give young players an opportunity. He's not starstruck. He doesn't ask, hey, can we get a $7 million players because it's cool, everybody have one. No, yeah. Bradley likes to work with youngsters. Bradley likes to develop players. He likes to make players better. And he likes players to understand the idea, how we want to perform as a team.
We fell short in the playoffs after a blistering Western Conference performance last year. Are there any specifics that you're working on to go that one step further? Like what, you've spoken about the players that you brought into the squad. Is there a different way of looking at it this season?
I'm not the guy who looks for lots of excuses. But last year, I said the timing of the playoffs with the international break and the bye kind of took a little bit the air out of us. We didn't know where we would stand. We lost our momentum, but that's, as I said, it's not an excuse, it's a fact. And then we still somehow had an opportunity to turn it around in a way in Kansas, and we didn't take our chances. So, yeah, for us to realize it's not always necessary to win the Western Conference to make it to the next level. Kansas showed us that because they build up a momentum to that moment, and we kind of lost it a bit. So yeah, we wanna obviously step one is to perform and make the playoffs, and then our goal must be to have learned a bit of a lesson what happened last year and how to do things a bit better. That's very simple words what we want to do.
Improving on our playoff performance sounds like it's one of your success metrics. Outside of that, what would success look like for you in 2024?
I mean, success is always relative. It's for different people. Success is, I would say, defined different. I mean, for Roman, for example, Roman wants to keep as many clean sheets as possible, which means if we have a lot of clean sheets, we will have automatically more and more points and we will make the playoffs. For Klaus and Sam, success looks that they will score double digits again, and that again will make us win more games, and it's all these little parts. So everybody will have a bit of a different idea what success is. For me, it is to play the way we play, to believe in our structure, to believe in our principles. Of course, if you're looking at numbers and stats, to make the playoffs. But for me, success is also to qualify again with our academy teams for the nationals, to make the playoffs with the second team, to get some City 2 players into City 1, to get some academy players to become professional footballers. And most important, to keep our culture strong, to keep our values real, and go out every weekend or every second weekend over there into City Park. And whatever is the result of the game, if everybody walks out of the stadium and says they worked as hard as possible from the first to the last minute and they left everything on the field, then you won't hear me complaining. That is success.
And then success in your personal life, you've got a charity. Like, tell us a little bit about your charity and what it does.
Oh, yeah, my charity is it's called Global United FC. It's already exists since 2007, 2008. It's a charity which, as the FC on the back, football club already tells you, has to do a lot with soccer and with football. So it's around 700 former players and legends of the game. Like I mentioned before, Christian Karembeu, Mendieta, We had players playing there, like for example Zico, who played for us. We had Claudio Canicia, who played for us. Carlos Valderrama. We had Lothar Matthäus. So there is like hundreds of players who played at the highest level. And what we do is we basically are a charity. We're looking into the environment. We're looking into sustainability. We're looking into, obviously, water saving, energy saving, recycling, a clean planet. This is, without a clean planet, we can't play football. Without a clean planet, we can't live. So everything is connected. And we want to use football as an engine. So this is not a football project in that way. It's a project for kids and for people. And we just want to use the power of football to embrace that. So we have projects all over the world, a lot of projects in Africa. We have projects in Europe. And that's something which I really do from the bottom of my heart. And I was kind of really impressed. There was not one player so far I approached who didn't join the charity. Everybody supports. And we do really lots of good things. So we have programs where we want to really support education, kids who have nothing, going to school, kids who have nothing being able to play football, but also learning about how to use the planet in the right way, where I believe that's something which everybody has to think about, that to keep the planet clean, to really think about to sustainable living. Everybody can do that, but it should start in the younger generation. And the role models of football players all over the world has a big impact on that, because usually kids see a player in England, and if he does it, the kids will do it. And we had all kind of different kind of tests and researchers, and I saw a university professor who only deals with that, talking in front of his students, and you could see of the reactions, yes, they believed him, it's a good thing. But then we had Giovanni Elber from a Bayern Munich, and Brazilian player, talk as well in Brazil about that, and the reaction was much more positive because he's a footballer and he believes in it, and he's a role model. And that is what we want to do. We want to, just really make the world a better place with smaller things and give kids opportunities.
Is there a place where fans can find out more information and potentially support?
Yeah, it's globalunitedfc.com. It's it shows a lot of our projects, and I definitely also want to do bits and pieces here in St. Louis. I'm already here now since close coming up to 4 years soon, and I didn't really have much time to do anything on that front, but something I want to do in the future as well.
Fantastic. Lutz, we always end the show with a little message to the fans. They love to hear from you, so if you've got a message to see it out.
Just support us the way you did in year one. I have a feeling that the bond even gets stronger, every week, and our guys, our players. It's a group of really good kids. It's a group of really good humans. We do not want to create a culture of superstars. We don't want to create a team of arrogant prima donnas. We want to have a team of just like you are, just like our fans are. I think we want to reflect exactly what our fans are on a normal day. We want to reflect on Saturday on the field. And I think like that, I think we already built a special club, a very unique club. For me, I always believed that for me, Hoffenheim will always be for the rest of my life the club of my heart. It still has a big part in my heart, but for me, St. Louis City, it's kind of me. It's a part of me. I was the first person in the sports department, and it's like, for me, it's more like family. And I think if everybody looks at it this way, the bond and the energy which can get created will create a super club in the future.
Okay, Lutz. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know that the fans absolutely love these podcasts. If you are listening to this on any podcast channel, give us a 5-star review and say to Lutz that you want him to come back so that we get him back on the show later on in the season. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you give us a subscribe. I've been Peter Wood. This has been the City Voice podcast. Lutz, thank you so much for giving up your time. Ciao for now.